here is what is hopefully the last part of the review. So this says to solve for all real zeros and write the polynomial in factored form. All right, so in order to do this, when I'm not given anything to start with, I need to find my possible roots. Okay, so my possible roots are found using the rational root theorem. And since the leading coefficient is 1, that's good. So it's really just the factors of 4. So it's plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, and plus or minus 4. Okay, those are my possible roots. And then I also need to use Descartes' rule of signs to figure out how many positive and negative real solutions I may have, or I will have. So for my positive real, I look at the signs for f of x, and that is positive, positive, negative, negative, positive. So there's 1, 2 sign changes, so that means I have 2 or 0. For my negative real, I have to look at f of negative x, so that means this would be positive, negative, negative, positive, positive. And so there's 1, 2 sign changes there. So again, it is 2 or 0. Okay, so that can help me kind of narrow things down sometimes. All right, so now I've just got to start going down my list. So I'm going to start with the easiest one. So I'm going to start with a 1. My coefficients here are 1, 2, negative 5, negative 8, and 4. So 1 gives me 1, 3, 3, negative 2, negative 2, negative 10, negative 10, negative 6. Okay, so that tells me positive 1, not a root. So then I got to start over with negative 1. I'm still using 1, 2, negative 5, negative 8, and 4. So 1, negative 1, 1, negative 1, negative 6, positive 6, negative 2, 2. I get 6 there. Negative 1 doesn't work either. Okay, so these are done. Now I'm going to try positive 2. So positive 2, still using 1, 2, negative 5, negative 8, and 4. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 6, negative 2, negative 4, 0. Oh, got a winner. This is a good thing. So that means that this is a root. So at this point, what I have that f of x is equal to x minus 2, since 2 is a root. This right here is my depressed polynomial, or the coefficients of it anyway, times, now I started with a 4th degree, so that means this is my cubed term, so x cubed plus 4x squared plus 3x minus 2. That's what I have at this point. So now, can't factor that, so I'm going to continue on trying my roots. But here's how I can narrow some things down, is that, well, I've already knocked those out. Those don't work. I'm not starting from my original ones. I can use this right here to do my synthetic division on, but I have reduced my number of possible factors. If I use the rational root theorem here, my only options are plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 2, so that means 4 is no longer an option. So although I'm kind of going in order anyway, I'd be wasting my time trying the 4. So I'm going to use the negative 2. Negative 2, and remember I'm coming and using the depressed part of this, so 1, 4, 3, and negative 2. So this gives me 1, negative 2, 2, negative 4, negative 1, 2, 0. Hallelujah, it works. So that's my other factor. So now what I'm at is that I have f of x equals x minus 2 times x plus 2 times, now remember I started with the 4th degree, there are 2 of them, so that means this is a squared, so I've got x squared plus 2x minus 1. Now I still have to finish, because I still haven't solved for all of them and don't have this completely finished here. I need to see if I can factor that. Can I factor that? No, because there's not two numbers that multiply to give you a -1 and combine to give you 2. So then my other option is quadratic formula. So I know that x equals, and I'm only using this right here, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a, which is 1. So this is going to give me -2 plus or minus, so 2 squared is 4, and then -4 times a -1 is a +4. This is the square root of 8 all over 2. So I can reduce that. The 8 reduces to 2 square root of 2, so -2 plus or minus 2 square root of 2 all over 2. I can reduce all of that, so I get that x equals -1 plus or minus the square root of 2. So now, my roots. My actual final answer here. I get a plus or minus 2 out of this, and I get -1 plus or minus the square root of 2. So there are my roots. And it says, write it in factored form. Here's my form, factored as it's going to get. Alrighty. Last one. So I start with my possible roots. Possible rational roots. And it's going to be a list that comes from a fraction here, because I have a term here that is not 1. So in the numerator, my options are 1, 3, and 9. In the denominator, it's 1 and 2. I'll start with my whole numbers because I'd like to try those first in here anyway. So I'm going to do 1 over 1, so that's plus or minus 1, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 9. Then I've got plus or minus 1/2, plus or minus 3/2, and plus or minus 9/2. Okay, then to look at the Descartes rule of signs for positive real, this is positive, negative, negative, positive, positive, negative. So there's 1, 2, 3 sign changes. This is 3 or 1. Negative real. I am looking at f of negative x. So that means it would be negative, negative, positive, positive, negative, negative. There are 1, 2 sign changes here, so this is 2 or 0. Those are my options. Okay, so now I'm just going to start trying stuff. So I'll start with the positive 1. My coefficients here are 2, -1, -20, 10, 18, and -9. All this, where my remainder will go. So I get 2, 2, 1, 1, -19, -19, so it's going to be a -9, -9, 9, 9, and 0. Well, that's nice. I've got my original one right there. Now that means that that is one of my roots. Okay, you can rewrite the polynomial if that helps you understand what's happening here. You don't have to. You can continue on with this. Sorry, I'm debating in my head whether I should write it down. And I want you to get to the point where you don't have to really overthink it and rewrite all that stuff every time. But I think I'm going to continue with this, but then I'll go ahead and write it off to the side just in case I've lost you somewhere. So now I'm going to try, I've tried a positive one, now I'm going to try a negative one, but I'm trying it with the depressed polynomial. The reason I get to continue with this is because this is 0. At this point here, what I have figured out so far is that f of x is equal to x minus 1 times, and then using these, I've got 2x to the 4th plus x cubed minus 19x squared minus 9x plus 9. So So again, you do not have to write that out because we're going to have to keep doing that a few times. But that's where I am right now. So that's why these coefficients go here, and now I'm going to see if I can factor out a negative 1 also. So I'll just continue with this. My remainder is now going to be here. So bring down my 2. It's going to be negative 2, negative 1, 1, negative 18, 18, 9, negative 9, 0. Well, that's fantastic news too, because that one works. So that means now at this point, which again, what I'm writing in green right here, you wouldn't have to write down. I just want to make sure that you're following me here. That x minus 1, I've also factored out the x plus 1. So what I'm left with these coefficients is, I started with the 5th degree. These are 2 of them. So now this is 2x cubed minus x squared minus 18x plus 9. So I can continue with this. So I've done my plus or minus 1. So now I'm going to move on to 3. Because I get to use the depressed polynomial again. I mean, I can figure out if it's a factor from the beginning, but why would I want to do that? My remainder goes there. So I've got 2, 6, 5, 15, negative 3, negative 9, 0. Well, that is nice because we had a 5th degree and the first 3 things we checked actually works. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, but it did happen here, so that's good. So I've got that. So now what I have is a little bit more important. So at this point, what I have figured out is f of x equals, got the x minus 1 times x plus 1, then x minus 3. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3 of my 5 degrees, so that means that's a squared. So 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. So now, got a couple of options here. I can continue doing synthetic division and continue going down my list. At this point, when I got here and here, I hadn't really reduced any. When I get here, I have reduced my possibilities of factors. First of all, I've already done those. But now my only options are anything that I can get out of this. So 1, which I've already taken care of. 3, which I've already taken care of the positive one, but not the negative one. So I would still have in my list, at this point, my list of possible factors, I'd have a negative 3 and a plus or minus 3 halves and the plus or minus 1 half. Okay, so that's what I've reduced that to. The rest of this stuff isn't part of it anymore. Okay, so I could continue with my smaller list and keep doing synthetic division, but really it's just going to be easier to go ahead and factor it. Or you could do quadratic formula. I mean, you've got some options, but factoring I think here is the best. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to factor this. I'm going to need 2 numbers to multiply to give me a negative 6, combined to give me the 5, so that's going to give me 2x squared plus 6x minus 3. Factor out my 2x, so this is x plus 3, negative 1, x plus 3. So that gives me x plus 3 times 2x minus 1. Okay, so that's what goes back in right here. My directions are to solve for all real zeros and write the polynomial in factored form. Okay, so here is my factored form. It is f of x. Now I've got factored forms along the way, but these up here weren't fully factored. F of x equals x minus 1 times x plus 1 times x minus 3 times x plus 3 times 2x minus 1. And so there we go. Fully factored. Make sure I actually answer the question because I'm also supposed to solve for all real zeros. So I was going to write roots, but my zeros are, I've got positive 1, negative 1, so I've got plus or minus 1, positive 3 and negative 3, plus or minus 3, and then this gives me a positive 1/2. There you go. There is your review. Let me know if you have any questions or, God forbid, I did anything wrong. Pretty confident in myself, but it's been a long day. It's been a long year. Alrighty. All right. Do well tomorrow. Come prepared. I'm grading your ISNs. Make sure they're ready. Those should be easy, easy grades.